Five-star Zion Elee shuts down his recruitment.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold. So make sure you guys head over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Maryland five-star commit Zion Elee made a huge announcement this weekend that the five-star is shutting down his recruitment and he is going to stay a Terp. And I can't emphasize enough how big of a news this is for the Maryland Terrapins. This is some of the biggest news Maryland football has had in a long time. It's the biggest news of the offseason. It's a transformal type of recruit in Zion Elee, the five-star. Like, this is something that's humongous for the Terps, that Zion Elee announced that he is shutting down his recruitment. Maryland football has never had a guy like Zion Elee. They haven't. They haven't had the talent like Zion Elee type. They haven't had a player ranked as high as Elee, and they haven't had a player ranked as such a prominent position like Zion Elee is. Some of our top recruits have been good players, but a lot of them have been like receivers, like Stephon Diggs, like Rakeem Jarrett. Like, we haven't had a top three player in the class that could possibly be the best player in the 2026 class. Like, not like, oh, this guy's a top 40 prospect and we really want him. Like, could be legitimately the best player in the 2026 class. I don't know if there's anybody more talented than the kid, and that's huge. In basketball and football, it's different. When you get a kid like Derek Queen, they kind of come in and they can make a really big impact. Football, you kind of have to stack good classes together. You can't just have one good player in a class. So obviously, I don't want to act like Zion Elee single-handedly is going to transform Maryland football. But the fact we are able to land a recruit like Zion Elee is humongous. And obviously, he's been committed to the Terps for a little bit now. It's been a little bit since he made his commitment. It's been a little bit for sure, but I think a lot of Terps fans weren't really sure exactly. Yeah, it says he made his commitment December 7th, 2024. So he made his commitment last year, actually. It's been a couple months, actually. So it's been a good bit since Zion Elee committed to Maryland. But we know that it is tough in today's college football, and especially in today's college football, to keep guys. It used to not be as hard. A commit used to mean a little bit more. It used to mean more back in the day. It would be harder to just decommit. Less kids would do it. A commitment would usually mean that guy's going to your school. You would see decommitment sometimes, but nowhere near as much as you see today. A commitment is very tentative today, and you're not even sure. It feels like you don't really want to be like, yeah, that guy's coming because he's committed. And I wasn't really sure with Zion Elee. I was kind of in that boat where I didn't want to say, yeah, this guy's coming to Maryland. Yeah, I feel good about him coming to Maryland, but now I feel pretty good. I don't want to say I'm 100% yet, because until that pen's to the paper, you just don't know with today's college football. We've seen situations like this, guys saying they're shutting down the recruitment, blah, blah, blah. We've seen it, and I'm not saying Zion Elee is going to do that. All I'm saying is we've seen previous evidence of that happening before. But it's huge that he announced he shut down his recruitment, because if you guys don't know, he was scheduled to go on like five official visits. It might have been six, including Maryland, five other than Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. It was like to like Auburn, it was like to Ohio State, Penn State, and then there's one more in there. And I said to myself, that's tough for Maryland to hold on to a guy who's going to go to Auburn, who they have a ton of money. They got SEC. It's a flashy type of program, even though they haven't been great. And it's tough to compete with Ohio State. They just won the national championship. If he goes up there, that's going to be tough to keep him because they're legit. They seem to have the best defensive ends every single year. Some of the best NFL defensive ends are guys from Ohio State. I would say their defensive end university, meaning that they have a ton of really good defensive ends and they have a really good team. Penn State, you could argue their DNU with Micah Parsons and now Abdul Carter. Like they seem like they have dudes always as well. And obviously Penn State's been a really good program. Like that's a tough program to go and visit. All those programs, that's tough to hold on from him. I think maybe it's Oregon too, and they're doing some special things right now as well. So the fact that he's announced that he was going on those officials, I didn't feel good about him staying at Terp. I didn't. I thought there was a really good shot that he would decommit, and I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's fair. Maryland's not usually going to get this type of player, but it looks like we are. And it speaks a lot about Mike Locksley and the Maryland coaching staff, what we can do. Even in today's world with NIL, it feels like we haven't been one of those top teams in terms of NIL and all those different things, and we're not still. But we've obviously made definitely a step up from where we were. Even the 2025 class showed that, okay, this is a step up with Jalen Gilchrist, obviously Malik Washington being the big one, Messiah Delhomme. Like there's some really good players in that class. And then you look to this 2026 class and you start off with Zion Elee. It's pretty clear Maryland has taken a step up in recruitment. And you would think if you're taking a step up in recruitment, you're probably taking a step up in NIL. So that's what it looks like the Terps have been doing. It looks like they've taken a step up in kind of all the branching recruiting categories, which is big. And I think Zion Elee getting him, it's obviously huge because for one, he's just a really good player. Like he's the best player in 2026 class. He's probably going to go on and play 10 years of NFL football at a really high level. Like that's the kind of potential that he has. And it's almost a letdown if he doesn't do that. And obviously he's going to be a really good player for Maryland football and Mike Locksley, and he's going to be able to come in right away, make an impact, do some special things at the defensive end position that we haven't seen, do some special things. And I think Maryland's been a team that I always say this, we've been good at the skill positions. I think we're good at running back. I think we're good at receiver. I think we've been good at corner. We have guys in the NFL at receiver. We have guys in the NFL at corner. But take a look at pass rushers over the past 4 or 5 years and under the Mike Locksley era. We haven't had a ton of like good ones that you're like, oh, he's amongst one of the better ones in the Big Ten. Oh, he's a guy that can really disrupt the other team's game plan. And that's part of the chunk, I would say. Big reason why this Zion Elee thing is big, because he's a guy that is a freak show off the edge, that has all the tools in the world, has every chance at being one of the best players in the nation after a couple of years, I think, at Maryland. And you're going to have a guy that can legitimately maybe wreck a game plan, an offensive game plan. And we haven't had guys like that. And I think it's big. And I think Zahir Mathis, I don't think in the 2025 class, 4-star, who we recently got, another guy that's really high level, I don't think he's the level that Zion Elee is. Obviously, like he's still a really high level, top 154-star. You're starting to get some guys that are going to look like dudes off the edge. D.D. Holmes out of the transfer portal. So I really like the way that group is looking. I think it's looking a lot better than previously how it was kind of doing for Maryland. So now I think we look a lot better at the edge spot, which I think is a big part of the reason why Zion Elee is a big commitment, because he's going to be a really good player. And sometimes it's that simple, but it does get a little bit more complicated than that. I think I always say this, when you land a big recruit like Zion Elee, the rest of the recruits become more of a domino effect, a ripple effect. You hit one domino down like a 5-star Zion Elee, all of a sudden Maryland looks a lot more appealing. And a guy that might have been on the line, a 4-star or 5-star like Emmanuel, the Georgetown Prep kid, who's a 5-star offensive lineman, who's a top 10 kid in 2026 class. Like I said, a prep guy, Georgetown prep guy, right in the DMV, right in the DC area. he's a guy that might look at Maryland and now say, I was on the fence about it. I wasn't quite sure. I don't want to be the first one to do it. But Zion Elee just shut down his recruitment. Maybe I'll go on that wave. And it's all of a sudden it's a domino effect. You get one, you get this other really good player. Then, you get this other really solid 4-star type of guy. Oh, another 4-star. Oh, another 4-star. Oh, another really good player out of the DMV. And you get this ripple effect. And all of a sudden you put together a really good 2026 class. And you stack 2 classes back to back that are really good. And that is huge for Maryland football. If you stack 2 really good classes back to back together, that's a big deal, I think. And I've always said it. Basketball, you can have a player or 2 that can come in and really change the program. Like, I think you guys would agree. Obviously, Gillespie, Miguel, and Rodney Rice have done a really good job, but Derek Queen is changed the Maryland basketball program from last year to this year. Obviously, he's not the only reason, but he's a big part of that. Whereas football, it's not just going to be Zion Elee, but the fact that you land a guy like that and he's going to be a really good player, he is going to be a domino effect. And that's why I think it is really important. I think he just got announced today that he's On3's number 1 player in the class. So it's just a marketing kind of tool for Maryland. It's a really big thing. And I think Terps fans can kind of breathe and say, we're not going to lose this guy. This guy doesn't want to go to Bama. This guy doesn't want to go to Georgia. This guy doesn't want to go to Penn State or Ohio State. This guy wants to be a Terp. And you hope you've kind of seen this DMV recruiting kind of slowly turn the page. And you hope that it can continue to happen like that. And landing 5-star Zion Elee really kind of does that for the Terps. He's really shown that we're kind of taking away about things that really is going to make Maryland a really good spot. And I think we're doing a really good job with recruiting. And I think Zion Elee, I think him shutting down his recruitment is one of the biggest news stories of Maryland athletics over the last month, 2 or 3, really over the past year. And landing him is going to be humongous for the Terps. Maryland basketball, I talked about it last time. They still can win the Big Ten. They have every opportunity to do so. We'll talk about that next. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more than or less than on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast and easy and keeps every game exciting. Building lineups. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. I love how easy you can make your picks. It's less than 60 seconds, and you can stay engaged all game long. When you win, your money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So I don't know if you guys got the opportunity to see this weekend, but when I talked about last episode, Maryland basketball being able to win the Big Ten, now it's really like when I talked about it last week, it's like, we kind of need this to happen. We kind of need that to happen. That has to happen too. Now it is very, very possible. It was a lot more possible this week. Every result that we kind of needed actually happened for the Terps to be able to have a really good opportunity to potentially win the Big Ten. Purdue lost to Indiana, which is big because Purdue has a tiebreaker over Maryland head-to-head, and they had the same record as Maryland before the loss to Indiana, and they would have been ahead of Maryland. But now Purdue drops to 11-6 and have another loss. Wisconsin lost as well, which is also big because they were a game up above us, but now they're tied with Maryland. But remember, we did end up beating Wisconsin, so we do have the tiebreaker over them with 5 losses. Now, the hardest part still is Michigan State and Michigan. They're going to be the favorite right now, and I would say Maryland's next in line, and Maryland still needs some things to go their way, but we needed Michigan to lose. Michigan was at 2 losses. We needed them to get another loss, and now they're at 3 losses. But the trick here is Maryland still, I think, has every opportunity to do this thing. The biggest reason why is because we play Michigan and Michigan State. And people are starting to hop on this Maryland thing. It's not as sneaky as it was a month or two ago, where it's like, oh, this Maryland team, I'm telling you guys, is really good. Like, I'm up here saying this Maryland team's the top 25 team in terms of talent. I know we just took a bad loss to Washington and a loss to Oregon, but when you look at this team, it seems really as good as anybody in the Big Ten, and they haven't showed it yet, but I think they're going to show it later on in the season. I said that 2 months ago. I thought we could win the Big Ten, and I made the prediction. I was like, Maryland basketball absolutely can win the Big Ten. And I said Michigan State's up there. I said Purdue's up there. I said some of these other teams are up there. I don't know if I put Michigan up there. I don't think I knew Michigan was going to be as good as they are. But now we're kind of here at this spot where if Maryland wins, it's not going to be easy. I'll go ahead and say that. Like, it's not a likely scenario, but it's a very possible scenario. But you probably have to win out. It's going to be really tough to do it if you don't win out, and you have two really tough games. And it's not like the end of the world, or it's not like the biggest thing ever if we do win it. But it would be exciting if we won the Big Ten regular season. The real trick is you want to be a top 4 team in the Big Ten to get as much rest as possible in the Big Ten tournament, because the top 4 teams get a bye. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for Maryland that Maryland wants to do, because the top 4 teams get the bye, like I said. But so you want to be a top 4 team, and Maryland currently is right behind UCLA and Purdue. Those are really the only teams I could see catching Maryland, unless they have a fart of a last. How many more games are left? Let's see, 4 games. But back to the winning the Big Ten thing, it's entirely possible, because I explained it a little bit, but I think I didn't get into very much. We get Michigan and we get Michigan State. We play Michigan State, as you guys know, as our next game. It's on this Wednesday, I guess. So it's coming around the corner here. We didn't have a game this weekend, so I've kind of just been waiting. I haven't been having a game to talk to. But this game against Michigan State may be the best game so far this year in the Big Ten. Michigan State have an argument to be made. Of course, they played last week. It was a pretty good game. But this Maryland Michigan State team, these might be the 2 best teams in the league. I think some people would argue that they are, and I think some people would say that they are. But I think Maryland has an opportunity to win this game at home, and you have to win it if you want to win the Big Ten regular season title. If you don't win it, I don't think we can win the regular season title. And it's not like the end of the world. You want to win March Madness, you want to win the Big Ten tournament, but the Big Ten regular season title is the thing that you want to be able to accomplish, and it's going to really help in March if Maryland's able to really finish strong down the stretch. But if you lose to Michigan State, you can't do it. I don't know if it's mathematically possible. I'm pretty sure that it's not. If you lose to Michigan State, I'm pretty sure it's not. But if Maryland beats Michigan State, which I think is entirely possible, and I think at home, I would guess Maryland's like a favorite. It's probably be about a pick 'em. If I had to guess, I don't make the line, so I don't know exactly. And I haven't looked yet because the game's not today or tomorrow. It's on Wednesday at 6:30. But if you beat Michigan State, you put yourself in a really solid spot where you're going to have the opportunity to do it. And then you're going to need Michigan to lose once before playing before playing you. You play Michigan on Wednesday, March 5th, another Wednesday game. Our biggest games of the season are on Wednesday, so we'll see how that goes. You play Michigan March 5th. You need Michigan to lose one outside of your game. You can have them drop to Michigan State again, but that would also be tough because you need Michigan State to drop another game as well. So it's not a likely scenario. You really need to win out, and then you want Michigan to beat Michigan State. That would be the key there, and that would kind of give us an opportunity to do it. But it's definitely not an easy road, but I do think the Terps have the opportunity to be able to do that. Let's talk a little bit March Madness talk. Where are the Terps? Let's talk about the rankings a little bit. How far have we come? Where are the Terps this week? We'll talk about that next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlays. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you never feel like you miss out on a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's talk a little bit of March Madness talks because I've seen a bunch of different seeding for Maryland, and I also want to talk about the Terps being ranked. So the rankings are interesting because you would think you can kind of just take the top 25 and be like, oh, the top 14 and the top 25 are the 1 seeds, the next 4 are the 2 seeds, the next 4 are the 3 seeds. But it doesn't quite look like that. It kind of ends up working a little bit like that, but it's usually not exactly like that. But it's about like that. So it's a good kind of accurate representation. So we can kind of combine this. Maryland's got ranked 16th in the country. So by the math right now, people would say we're probably a 4 or a 5 seed, which I do think we're bad. I would say if the tournament started today, I would think Maryland's a 5 seed. Now, maybe Maryland's 2 biggest tests of the season are still to come against Michigan and Michigan State. And those are really going to be a huge indicator where Maryland lies. If you go 2-0 in those games, Maryland might mess around and be a 3 seed in March Madness. I really believe that because you play Northwestern in your last game. That should be one you win. You play Penn State, and if you do decent in the Big Ten tournament, you might end up being a 3 seed. If Maryland finishes so-so, and when I say so-so, maybe you split Michigan, Michigan State, and then you win Penn State, Northwestern, have like a decent Big Ten tournament, don't win it, then I can see them kind of staying about the same at a 5 seed. But I think if you poop the bed in the last 4 games of the season, let's just say you go 2-2, maybe 1-3. I really don't want that. But you never know what happens. Then you probably push yourself up to a 6th, maybe even a 7 if you really struggle to end of the season. But here's kind of how I see it for the Terps. I think no matter what seed this team is, as long as we're healthy and we haven't had any injuries, knock on wood, I don't want to talk about that really, but as long as we're healthy, there's not a team we can't beat in the tournament. There's not like a team that on a given night Maryland can't beat. I do think that's true. I don't care if it's Duke. I don't care if it's Auburn. I don't care who it is. I don't think there's a team Maryland can't beat. I'm not saying Maryland should be favored in every game. I'm not saying Maryland's going to win the whole thing. I just think on any given day, there's not a team that we can't beat. There's some teams that no matter how good they play, they're not going to beat Auburn. No matter how good they play, they're probably not going to beat Duke. Even if Duke plays their worst game, even if a team plays their best game, Duke's still going to be up by 6 with a minute left and should win that game. But if Maryland plays to their potential in March and in the Big Ten tournament when we get to crazy basketball, I don't know of a game that the Terps can't win. And I really believe that. We're the 16th ranked team in the country. This isn't some Cinderella story anymore. A lot of analysts are saying that Maryland's the best built in the Big Ten to make a tournament run. And I kind of believe it because we're balanced in our starting lineup. We can score in a bunch of different ways. We can actually shoot the ball, unlike last year. And we play good defense. And that's a recipe to win games. And to me, there's not a team that I see that we can't beat. And if Maryland finishes up this season well and ends up with a 4 or like a 3 seed, I think we can do something special in March Madness. And I would say I'd be really disappointed if the Terps lose early. I would be. I think this Maryland team has every opportunity to make a late run in March. I think I think they can win the Big Ten tournament. I don't think there's something this team can't do. And I don't know again when we're going to be this good. I doubt next year. I doubt the year after that. Like, this is a special team. And so you don't want to mess around with this thing. And March Madness is crazy. Anything can happen. We've seen 1 seeds lose. We've seen 2s lose. We've seen 3s lose. We've seen every seed lose. But I do think this team has put themselves in a position where it's like the sky's the limit. winning it all is a possibility. I'm not saying that's likely. I'm saying it's a possibility. And so we'll see exactly what happens. But I do think Maryland put themselves in position to maybe be a 4 seed if we finish the right way, and even possibly a 3 seed. But we'll see exactly what happens. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.